Have you ever thought about trading in, say, a geological hammer for a deep dive into the human psyche? I know, it sounds like a massive leap, right? But today, we're exploring this really fascinating career transformation. We're going to see how the skills you'd use to read ancient stones might just be the perfect toolkit for understanding the complexities of the human mind. Okay, let's get into it.
So, this is the big question, isn't it? What on earth do rocks and the human mind have in common? I mean, on the surface, they seem like total opposites. One is the solid physical history of our planet, and the other is this, invisible internal world of our thoughts and feelings. But believe it or not, the connection between them is surprisingly deep.
And right here, this is the key. Think about it. A geologist uses stuff like seismic data and borehole logs to map out a whole subsurface world they can't actually see. And a psychologist? Well, they use observations and tests to map an individual's internal mental state, which is also completely invisible. At the end of the day, both are experts at interpreting these hidden, super complex systems. All right, so how do you actually make this switch? If you're in Australia, it's definitely not a quick pivot. No, it's a highly structured and pretty rigorous journey. Let's pull out the map and chart this expedition.
The first thing you absolutely have to wrap your head around is this number, 6. That's the minimum number of years of very specific education and training it takes to become a registered psychologist. We're talking about a serious, long-term commitment that's regulated every single step of the way.
So here's the map that breaks down that whole 6-year journey. You start with a bridging qualification to get the fundamentals down. That's followed by this pivotal and honestly intensely competitive 4th year. If you get through that, you can get provisional registration, which then lets you start 2 years of postgraduate training. And then, finally, the last step, becoming a generally registered psychologist.
And along this whole path, you're going to meet 2 main gatekeepers. It's actually pretty simple when you break it down. APAC looks at your university courses. They make sure the program is up to scratch. Then you've got SIBA, the psychology board. They look at you. They're the ones who register you as a person qualified to practice. You got to have both.
So, after you've successfully navigated that super competitive 4th year, you arrive at a really critical decision point. This is the crossroads. This is where you have to choose your path for the final 2 years of advanced training. And the choice you make here really defines the kind of psychologist you can become. You've basically got 2 main options. The higher degree pathway, that's your route to becoming a specialist, like a clinical psychologist. And a big plus here is you generally don't have to sit the final national psychology exam. The other option is the 5+1 pathway. This one's more workplace-focused, with a big internship component, and it leads to general registration. But you do have to pass that national exam. So the crucial thing here is the trade-off, right? It's specialization versus a more integrated, hands-on training model.
Okay, let's shift gears and get to the really cool part. Let's talk about how a geologist's background becomes a kind of superpower in this new field. This isn't just about learning a bunch of new skills. It's about leveraging the powerful analytical mind you've already built.
This quote from our source material, this is the real aha moment. It just perfectly captures that shared challenge. Geologists and psychologists are both basically detectives. They're piecing together a coherent story from scattered, incomplete clues to understand a world that's completely hidden from view.
And that shared challenge develops an almost identical set of incredibly valuable skills. I mean, thinking in complex systems, reasoning in 3D, pulling together all these different bits of data, and making judgments when you don't have all the answers. That's the daily toolkit of a geologist, and it is directly applicable to complex psychological assessment and research. In fact, there's a whole field dedicated to this intersection. It's called geocognition. It applies cognitive psychology to figure out how geologists make these massive, multi-million-dollar decisions. So someone with expertise in both fields, they're perfectly positioned to contribute here. And why is this so important? Because geological interpretation isn't purely objective. It's really vulnerable to cognitive biases. So, let's take anchoring bias. A geologist might form an early theory about some subsurface structure. Now, even if new data comes in that contradicts that theory, they might unconsciously just discount that new information because they're stuck on their initial anchor. And that can lead to some incredibly expensive drilling mistakes.
Or think about availability bias. An expert looking at some ambiguous seismic data might be swayed by the type of geological formation they worked on most recently, just because it's more available in their memory. They might see a familiar pattern, even if other interpretations are just as likely. Understanding these biases is absolutely critical.
So after navigating that whole 6-year pathway, and now you're armed with this really unique interdisciplinary perspective, what does a career actually look like?
Well, this brings us to the exciting part, the payoff.
A really crucial point to get is that this journey offers valuable outcomes at different stages. You can go all the way and pursue roles as a fully registered psychologist, or you can take the powerful skills you've gained and leverage them in a huge range of really interesting non-registered careers. For a registered psychologist who has a geology background, the fit is just incredible. You could work as an organizational psychologist improving safety culture in mining operations, or maybe a clinical psychologist helping communities recover from natural disasters. Or you could even become a researcher, pushing the boundaries of that whole geocognition field.
But even if you don't complete the full 6 years, the training opens up so many doors. The skills in research and understanding human behavior are in super high demand in fields like user experience research in tech, consumer insights for marketing, or advising on public policy for environmental and emergency management agencies.
At the end of the day, this journey from geology to psychology really shows that seemingly unrelated experience isn't some kind of detour, it's a source of unique strength. And it kind of makes you think, doesn't it? What's the hidden, valuable connection from your own background that could be the key to whatever you do next?